Welcome to the latest episode of the Gull-Mouth Action podcast, where we take a look at all the latest goings on at Brighton, Hove Albion and Crawley Town. I'm Matt Polt, and this week I'm joined by Brighton writer Derren Howard, as well as Crawley Town expert Mark Dunford. Brighton halted a 6-game winless run in the Premier League with an impressive 2-0 victory over Brentford to ease the pressure on manager Fabian Hurtzeler. Crawley, meanwhile, left it very late to snatch a vital point against Chesterfield in their quest to stay in League Two. This week, we'll pick over the bones of a much-needed Albion win, honour the record-breaking James Milner, bring you all the fallout from a dramatic game at the Broadfield Stadium, and look ahead to this week's fixtures for Brighton and Crawley. Don't forget, you can read all the stories we are talking about, the videos and pictures online at sussexworld.co.uk/sport. Brighton claimed their first Premier League win since the 3rd of January to ease the pressure on manager Fabian Hurtzeler at Brentford on Saturday. The Seagulls were the better side at the GTEC Community Stadium and deservedly took a 2-goal lead into half-time. Ferdy Kadioglu's spectacular long-range effort rattled off the bar and into the path of Diogo Gomez, who showed great composure to open the scoring from the rebound. Brentford defender Nathan Collins was at fault for the visitors' second as he made a complete mess of clearing Jack Hinchwood's low cross into Danny Welbeck, who was left with a simple, close-range finish. This much-needed victory lifts Brighton at 10 points clear of the relegation zone. And Fabian Hurtzeler is the greatest manager in the history of football again, Derren. How big of a win was that for the Seagulls? Stops the rot. I didn't realise it'd been such a long winless run. And that performance, by the sound of it, showed a side who had quite a bit of confidence, despite what the naysayers have been saying.
Yeah, it did look a good performance, and you wouldn't have. I didn't expect them to play with that level of confidence, as you say, considering the run that they've been on. All the talk has been in training. You know, it doesn't feel doom and gloom. The spirit has been good, but that really hasn't been coming through onto the pitch of late until Brentford. And I don't think it's an exaggeration to say it's probably the biggest win of Hurtzeler's career so far. I think it would have made it very, very difficult for him if the result had gone the other way at the GTEC. It's the pressure had been building, and they were just edging towards that relegation zone slightly. And another poor result at Brentford would have put them in big trouble, and the questions would have increased on Hurtzeler. So luckily for him, probably not for some Brighton fans who are never going to take to Hurtzeler, but luckily for him, he's sort of, as you say, eased the pressure somewhat, and it was much needed. In terms of performance, it was a good performance. I thought first half they played very well. They were passing. It was crisp. The pace was quite high as well, which hasn't always been the case. But one of the questions after the game was, do you think that performance was better than the one at Fulham, where they lost 2-1? And I personally thought they played better at Fulham, but this time the small decisions went their way, the little bits of luck went their way, which you need. That hasn't always been the case against Everton as well. The luck didn't go their way right at the end; they conceded. So, but yeah, boy did they really needed it at Brentford, and as you say, it eases a sort of bit of relegation fears. 10 points above relegation, closer to Europe, although that's still a sort of distant possibility now when you look at the table. But I think a sort of a mid-table, above the mid-table, could be more than achievable. And it's Brighton's win, and then you look at Tottenham and West Ham down there as well. They're in that relegation battle now as well, and just imagine those two clubs in the Championship next season with their stadiums and in the Championship. So it's everything sort of shifted a bit this weekend, a much more positive feeling. And as you say, Hurtzeler's he's the man now. So
He's the man.
He's the man.
Well, on a memorable afternoon for Brighton, 40-year-old midfielder James Milner made his 654th Premier League outing in West London to break Gareth Barry's long-standing top-flight appearance record. Milner's afternoon was ended by an apparent injury late on, but the former England international received a rapturous ovation from the away end as he made way off the pitch. Post-match, Brighton boss Hurtzeler said the 40-year-old was a role model for everyone, and it's really quite hard to disagree with him, isn't it, Derren? It's a fantastic achievement for Milner, isn't it? And he's been nothing but a consummate professional, isn't he, since he's pitched up in East Sussex?
Yeah. And the thing that pleased me the most as well is that he surpassed or eclipsed Gareth Barry's record with a performance that, he really contributed well on the pitch. He was one of the best players at the GTEC on Saturday, and to get the 3 points, to break that record in the manner that they did, it was just the perfect day all round for him, really. And I think he was okay at the end there. We spoke to him on Tuesday, and he said that he was just cramping up a little bit at the end there. He said Lewis Dunk was screaming at him late in the match for another recovery run, and he was trying to sort of bomb back to cover a run, and he said both his calves just completely locked up, and he just said nothing more. So but yeah, he rightly took the applause from the away fans. It was a nice moment, They've struggled for results lately, and I think just having that milestone as well, it just gave everybody a boost. And to see the likes of Danny Welbeck with him, 35-year-old Danny Welbeck, 34-year-old Lewis Dunk, 34-year-old Pascal Gross, 40-year-old James Milner at the end there. It's a very experienced team that Brighton put out. The oldest, I think it was a 29-year-old average age, which is unusual for Brighton when you look at what their transfer strategy is to bring in these younger players and to blood the youngsters. But they went experienced. Herzella needed people to carry out his game plan, and nobody did that better than Milner on the day.
Yeah, we'll talk a little bit about the team Herzella selected for Brentford in a bit, but you met the man himself, didn't you, James Milner, at Brighton's Lancing training ground on Tuesday. How was he? Yeah. And what did you discuss?
He was looking far too fit and healthy for a 40-year-old that just played 90 minutes in the Premier League. He's a machine. He's sort of how he went into some detail about his sort of lifestyle and sort of how he does it, and we'll be there's an interview going up on the Sussex World on Friday where we'll go into more detail on that. But yeah, you can just tell he doesn't cut any corners. Everything is so regimented. His training, his recovery, what he does on match days, and it's something that the younger players will really benefit from playing with somebody like that. And he received his official. He broke 3 records, and there was the Guinness Book of Records guy came to Lancing Stadium yesterday. It was all the journalists were sort of sat round, and sports journalists are a scruffy bunch. We're all in shorts, t-shirts, and not shorts. It was winter, but in jeans and t-shirts. And the Guinness Book of Records guy came in. He's like, "Who's this guy?" He's all in his suit and his blazer, and he's like, "Oh, it's the Guinness Book of Records." He was great. He presented Milner with his certificates for his 654th appearance. He's also, let me get this right, so he's got the longest gap between the first and last English Premier League goal, which is a record, which is 22 years and 48 days. So since he's been playing, it's the longest ever gap between the first goal and the second goal. So quite a niche record, that one. And he's also got the most consecutive English Premier League seasons played at 24 as well. So we got some nice pictures. I did a piece on Sussex World. He's got all of the three certificates on there this morning. So yeah, really good to meet Milner. Good to get an insight of what it takes to, keep going at the highest level. The Premier League is so fast these days. It's just such a fast-paced game, and to be in the middle of the park, in the midfield, in that engine room at 40 years old, with all these sort of 22-year-olds, 24, 23-year-olds, it's incredible what he's done, and fair play to him.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, the win at Brentford was certainly a welcome one, but also provided a stark reminder of just how poor Brighton's recent new signings have been. The Seagulls have spent almost 200 million since Herzella's arrival, but only 2 of those players, namely Mats Wiefer and Ferdi Kadioglu, were used at the G-Tech. Instead, as Derren said, Herzella turned to older heads like Milner, Dunk, Welbeck and Gross. This is going to be a 3-part question, really, Derren. How damning is it that big money signings like Jorginho Ruta, Yankuba Minter and Kostulas weren't used by Herzella at Brentford? We asked Sam on last week's pod how many of his signings you'd say have been certified hits. We couldn't name many. Do you think it's unfair to say that Albion's recruitment has been hit and miss considering their previous successes? It seems there have been a lot more misses than hits of late.
Yeah. It's not unfair to say at all. They just haven't been up to scratch. And as great as it is that Pascal Gross has come back, I said at the time it's an admission that the players that they bought into, spent huge amounts of money in to replace someone like Gross. They just haven't been up to scratch. Likes of Brian Gruder, Jorginho, Matt O'Reilly. That's 100 million. Just there almost. And Gruder's back in Germany on loan. Matt O'Reilly came back from his loan in Marseille, and he hasn't been in the last two match day squads. Jorginho, he's been really patchy this season. I thought he had a good season last season, and I really expected him to really kick on and help fill that void that João Pedro left. And I thought he was going to be the main man for Brighton this season, but I think he's just got 1 or 2 goals this season. I haven't checked his stats, but I think he's on 2 goals for the season. And it's just not enough. Just not what Brighton needed. It's created an over-reliance on Danny Welbeck. Kostoulas was an unused sub against Brentford. Not really surprised with that one. He's impressed when he's come on, but he's always going to be. He was never really going to be up and running straight away in the Premier League. I think he was always going to be a challenger to Welbeck. But hopefully in the next season he will. That would be the time to judge the likes of Kostoulas. But I think Jorginho and Yankuba Minte as well this season. He was 35 million, Yankuba Minte, and so they've spent a lot of money, and it hasn't quite worked out. And I think there's no coincidence that the new sporting director Jason Ayeto came in shortly after, these transfers, and he's got a lot of work to do. He's, it's an age, he had to rely on these older players just because he can't, trust these players to perform regularly in the Premier League at the moment. So lots to work on in the summer. I'd say a bit of a reset.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm putting you on the spot a little bit here, but the whole Matt O'Reilly situation, it just seems very strange to me. I know that he suffered that injury when he was brutally assaulted by Jay Williams, but it's like they don't really know what to do with him, do they? It's a curious case because he did really well at Celtic, didn't he?
He did fantastically well at Celtic. Goals and assists. Obviously, the Premier League's a different matter, and he. I don't know whether it's something that Herzella just doesn't quite fancy him. He doesn't think he has the physicality, but he started the first 2 games of the season, had a poor game at Everton. He was on the bench against Man City. And then he was then loaned out to Marseille. And I sort of thought, well, after a reasonable spell at Marseille, he then came back to Brighton. And I sort of questioned it then is, what's his motivation going to be like? He sort of thought, well, I wasn't wanted at the start of the season. Why am I going to, really be, what's my role going to be in the second half of the season? So there's question marks whether he's going to feature too much now. He hasn't been in the last 2 matchday squads. He was pictured in training yesterday. He was training yesterday with the team. So I'm interested to see the team selection for Nottingham Forest to see whether Matt O'Reilly's going to be be or not. So it's a weird one.
Yeah, it is indeed. Albion have a home doubleheader to look forward to this coming week. First, as Derren mentioned, they welcome struggling Nottingham Forest on Sunday before entertaining, unfortunately, title-hunting Arsenal on Wednesday. 2 different types of challenges for Brighton, Derren. How do you see these games going? I'm going to give you a bit of a what's the word? A look behind the curtain, if you will, about my prediction for this. I think Brighton will probably get beaten by Forest and play Arsenal off the park. How do you see these ongoing?
Yeah, it's like you say, it's a real contrast, isn't it? As double headers go, Forest are really battling for relegation. Victor Pereira's come in and had a good result in Europe, but then they suffered a defeat against Liverpool. It's his first Premier League match in charge, and they did quite well in the first half against Liverpool. But they're really going to be scrapping for the points. I was at Nottingham Forest for Brighton's game against when Sean Dyche was in charge. It's hard to keep track with. I've had four managers this season. It's a complete contrast to how Brighton operate. They backed Herzella. They kept their faith in him when when Brighton were going for a bad run, whereas Forest just pulled the trigger. So often it's just a bit bonkers. But it's going to be an interesting one. So I think Forest, I think Brighton could sneak a result against Forest, and then Arsenal, it's very difficult to see. I think they're just on this roll at the moment, Arsenal, and they look quite impressive against the poor Tottenham team last time out, and they'll probably have too much for Brighton, but you never know. You never know. It's two really good games for them, and I think the Brentford win just takes a little bit of pressure off these next two games. Not much, but eases the pressure a bit. It'd be interesting, like I mentioned, Matt O'Reilly coming back in, maybe that would be interesting. And Solly March, he was very close to playing against Brentford. He was close to the matchday squad, so there could be a return for March against Nottingham Forest, and that would give the Amex a boost as well. Local lad coming back.
Yes, absolutely. Well, best of luck to Brighton this week. Now we'll cast our eye on Crawley Town, who denied playoff chasing Chesterfield a fourth win in 6 games as they salvaged a 1-1 draw at the Borfield Stadium. Crawley captain Jay Williams headed in a Ronan Darcy cross at close range in the final minute of added time to cancel out Liam Mandeville's strike just before the interval. The draw leaves the Reds 21st in League Two, just 2 points clear of the drop. But how big of a point could that be for Crawley come the end of the season, Mark?
Well, excuse me. Yeah, it could be huge. Every point at the moment is a good point, isn't it? So, especially against a team that is up at the other end of the table, and obviously they drew with MK Dons last week. So, yeah, two really good points. I mean, again, I always say that Scott Lindsay's never happy with just a point. He always wants to win, but the points have been few and far between this season. So I think they'll take it. It was a weird game because Crawley normally play well first half. Traditionally this season, played well first half and then not so good second half. This time it was the other way around. Chesterfield had the better of the first half. The second half, he made a slight change. He brought on Taylor Richards for Justin Ferrazai, a sort of slightly more attacking substitution. I think that was because they were 1-0 down at half time and had to go for it. And they left it very late. But what's a header? I don't know if anyone's seen it, but proper bullet header from Jay Williams, Matt Riley's best mate. Matt Riley. Really, really good point. If they can pick up points against the promotion chasing teams and then start winning, because I think we've talked about it, Matt, the last few games of the season are those big games around the teams around them. So if they can just pick up as many points as they can before those and then really target those games, then they should be all right. But results are sort of going. Newport and Harrogate seem to be picking up points now. Yes. Which is a bit of a revival. But Barrow, they were lucky with the Barrow result on Saturday. Barrow were 2-0 up, and then Fleetwood scored 2 goals in the last 10 minutes or whatever it was in that at a time to win. So yeah, it's getting very tight and tasty down there. So they've got to start turning draws at points into 3 points and go from there. But yeah, essentially a good point against a good side in Chesterfield.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Williams ended a run of 4 Crawley games without a goal in very dramatic fashion, as we mentioned. But the Reds frontmen continue to misfire. The 3 returning Wembley heroes, namely Ronan Darcy, Clyde Lolos and Danilo Orsi, are still yet to find the net since their January signings, with Orsi in particular, by the sounds of it, really struggling to make an impact in front of goal. Why have those 3, well, not just those 3, the forwards in general, really failed to make an impact in front of goal, Mark? Is the lack of service to blame, or is that just an easy excuse for those 4 players?
Probably a bit of both, really. They are creating chances, but I don't know if it's just a confidence thing at the moment. Generally, confidence in front of goal has been poor all season, and it seems to have carried on. I mean, anyone who thought Orsi was going to come in and score 15, 20 goals in the second half of the season was living in cloud cuckoo land. But I thought he would get, he's had a couple of really good chances. He had a chance in the first half against Chesterfield, which the keeper saved. But, it's difficult, isn't it? Lolos and Darcy, they haven't had a lot of football in the last since they left Crawley, really. So I think they're still slightly getting up to speed. I mean, I know Scott said a lot about they haven't got time to get up to speed. We've got to click straight away. But I mean, it's interesting what Scott said about it, because I asked him about Orsi last week, and he actually said he thinks he's playing better than he did in that promotion winning season. He just said The only thing that's missing is the goals. He said his work rate is up there, better than it was. His hold-up play is better than it was. His defensive play is better than it was. But obviously the key thing is scoring goals, and he's not doing that at the moment. And he called him a cluster striker. Careful how I say all that.
I was very worried then when he said that.
A cluster striker. He said what has he gone? I think it's 9 games since he's returned and he hasn't scored. But Lindsay thinks he'll then go on to score 9 in 6 games, kind of thing. So hopefully that is the case, and he'll get one at Oldham this weekend. But it's a real struggle. And and he said about Lolos and Darcy that they. You've got to remember Lolos has not played loads, so he is getting up to speed of things. Darcy's played a little bit more and has had quiet games, but I thought in the last 2, I think he's done well. And he said there's no need to panic. The fact we're not scoring, we're still creating a lot, and for me, we're creating enough. Our XG is always reasonable. We've just got to continue with that. So Lindsay, I mean, obviously he's going to say that. He's not panic, but I was looking back at the Oldham highlights in preparation for this game. And Ryan Loft scored in that game. I wonder what happened to him. Yeah, where's he? So, and like we said, I think we said last week that some fans have been calling for him to start. After him being the worst striker in the world at one point. So, it's a funny one, but something needs to click. But you can't see Scott not picking Horsey.
I was going to say that Scott Lindsay obviously knows far more about football than I ever will. And it just strikes me strange that surely when you're in a relegation battle, you want someone that you know is going to put goals in the back of the net. It's all very well and good running around, tracking players down and everything like that. But surely at this stage of the season, you want, be it Harry McCurdy or Ryan Lofts, you want someone scoring goals. How long do you think he will persist with Horsey before he goes, you know what, maybe this isn't working?
Yeah, I don't know. It's a very good question because there isn't a lot of time left, is there?
No,
you've got to stick or twist really at this point. And if he drops Horsey now, then it's a sort of admission of we got this wrong sort of thing, isn't it? So I can't see him dropping him. No, even if he doesn't score for the next couple of games, I think Horsey will start unless Horsey turns around to Lindsay said, I need a bit of a break.
Yeah,
I need maybe a come on impact sub, score a goal with his bum or something, and then that'll turn everything around. But I can't see it changing at all at the moment. And that front three of Horsey, Darcy, and Lolos, I think he's just convinced it will click at some point. I mean, Horsey and Lolos scored 39 goals between them in the promotion-winning season, so they haven't become bad players overnight. I think it is taking a little bit of time, and I'm sure it will click.
Fingers crossed it does. Reds boss Scott Lindsay served the first of a 2-match touchline suspension on Saturday, having accumulated too many yellow cards over the season, and took in Crawley's draw with... Surely not, no, very surprised. And took in Crawley's draw with Chesterfield from the stand, and by the sounds of it, Mark, it sounded like he was having a bloody lovely time in the stands, didn't he? What do you have to say about his new vantage point?
He's sort of said this a few times because there's a few times in his Crawley Town career that he's had to sit in the stands. He's not, but he just, excuse me. I actually enjoy being up in the stands. I feel a lot calmer. The bit I don't like is not coming out and seeing the fans before the game and applauding them. So he apologises for that, but he just likes the calmness up there. I mean, if he behaved in the stands as if he did on the sidelines, the stewards would have to throw him out. But I think it gives him a better overview as well. And maybe going back to the Horsey question, maybe he's seen a few things that think, actually, maybe I do need to change it because he's got that overview of what of the whole game rather than seeing it from the eye level kind of thing. So but he seems to enjoy it. But he'll be in the stands at Oldham on Saturday. Yes, I think he has an earpiece in talking to Neil Smith and Jamie Day on the touchline, so he gets the messages to them. But sorry, I'm going to have to take a drink. Excuse me. Yes, but he's I'm sure he gets his messages down there, but he does it in a slightly nicer, calmer way than he would normally.
Probably a lot more pleas and thank yous, I imagine, when he's up in the
I'm surprised. I'm surprised more managers don't do that, to be fair, just to sit up in the stands, because football's now so tactical, isn't it? Where it's everything sort of like, you want to see your instructions carried out properly. You get a much better view up on top, and like Mark says, you can communicate with the bench or quite easily. And the rugby coaches do it a lot, don't they? You see the rugby.
Yeah. On a side note of that, I just remember when I went to Roma to watch Brighton v Roma, I remember in the Olympic Stadium, you sat so high that it was like watching sensible soccer or something. And I just remember being able to see that whole thing, because at Crawley, you're sitting quite near the home end goal. So you have anything that happens in the away end, you are sort of stretching and looking kind of thing. So you haven't got the full pitch. But I just remember that night just watching it, and you could see everything that was going on without moving your head. And it was fascinating to see it in that view.
It is, isn't it?
I'm just not used to it. And I just remember how good Roma were that night and how poor Brighton were that night. It's a good point though, Derren. I'm surprised more don't do it.
At the Amex, with the overflow section of the press box, if the bit behind the dugout is full, the press gets sent up way up to the back of the stands, and you get that, like you were saying, probably not as high as Roma, but you get that overview as well up there. It makes it good. It's good. It's hard to get your half-time high, though. That's the only problem.
Without meaning to go on a tangent, I went to the Olympic Stadium because it was for my mate's birthday. He's a big Welsh rugby fan. We went there to watch Wales against Italy, and it is a terrible place to watch sport, isn't it?
Yes, yeah, it's
demolishing.
I remember. Well, me and Sam Morton have got some tales of that trip, but just getting into the stadium was hard enough because I was English. Yeah. So it's a very tightly packed rucksack because we were flying home. We had to travel back to the airport straight after the game, and I had to unpack everything, and I was fuming, absolutely fuming. But hey, I didn't kick up a fuss.
Brave little soldier that you are. Well, Crawley are experiencing a bit of a crisis in defence at the moment, going back on track. The Reds' backline has seen many shake-ups in recent games due to injuries to Theo Vassell, Josh Flint, and now Lewis Richards, who went off with a calf problem on Saturday. Johnny Russell, a left wing-back by trade, filled in for Richards on the left-hand side of the defence and put in a solid display. But despite the injury sustained to his key defensive figures, manager Scott Lindsay ruled out switching formation to accommodate his current options. Mark, why is Lindsay shut down any notion of changing his tactical setup? And what's the latest injury news regarding Flint and Richards?
Well, we haven't actually had a chance to catch up with Lindsay yet, so we don't know the full detail of them. But he said Flinty's got a really sore Achilles. He came off late against MK Dons, which was really disappointing because he was on for playing every second of this season. And I think everybody was just a little bit gutted that he didn't sort of carry on that run. But I think, Lewis Richards, he felt his calf, and in that first half, they didn't want to risk anything. So it sounds like Richards was a bit more precautionary. Flint could be a bit longer, it looks like, if they rested him for the whole game. So we'll have to wait and see on that. But Lindsay, he's anything but a back four man. He will never ever change. But how he sort of justified it was, we recruited for a back three. We can't play a back four. There's not one fullback in the building, so there's no way we can play a back four. I'm not one to disagree with Mr. Lindsay, but they have got the players to play a back four. If the worst came to the worst, I would have thought. But like you said earlier, Mr. Lindsay knows more about football. On a slightly side note, you mentioning he knows more about football than me. He was telling me a story last week when the camera stopped rolling about his dad, because his dad and brother both played professional football, and his dad was a big proponent of, if you haven't played football, you can't talk about it. So I think they mean professionally. So so Scott. That's why Scott Lindsay says he doesn't read social media. He doesn't listen to anything anyone says unless it's someone who's actually been in the game and knows the game, kind of thing. So I don't fully agree with that. I think people can have their opinions. Some people can't, Rory Jennings, but I won't go on about it. Where was I? Sorry, but So he's not. He's got his system. I remember a few years back, I think it was a promotion-winning season, when I asked him, "Why don't you play a 4-4-2 sort of thing, just out of interest?" Actually, it was on the anniversary of him joining Crawley. I remembered I asked him, and we interviewed him in the changing room, and he said to me, "Have you got a couple of minutes?" And he went and got his tactics board, got his little counters and magnetic counters, and was moving them all around. And he was showing how boxy a 4-4-2 is. He said, "You can't do this, you can't do this." And then he showed his formation, which is normally 3 at the back, 2 wing backs, 2 in the pivot, 2 behind the front. I think that works out right, and 1 up top. And he was just showing me all the different angles that creates, so you can pass round midfield, and that with a 4-4-2 that becomes a lot more difficult, and that's why he doesn't do it. So he's never ever going to go to a 4-4-2. But I think he has the players to do that, but he obviously doesn't think that. So, yeah, who knows what back three we're going to see this week. We've seen a lot of combinations of the back three this year because of Akin Mayo, Charlie Barker, obviously, Bajrami, Josh Flint, now Johnny Russell. But I think he was really impressed with Johnny Russell's performance there the other day. He's a powerful player, good in the air. So, why not? Why can't he play there? So.
Absolutely. Interesting stuff. Well, this Saturday sees the Reds make the trip to mid-table Oldham, as we've mentioned. The Latics sit 15th in League Two, but they are unbeaten in the last 3, winning 2 and drawing 1. How do you see this one going, Mark? Crawley never seem to have any luck, do they, with these fixtures? They seem to have found themselves against the side who've found a bit of form in the coming past weeks. How do you see this one going, and what's the latest injury news?
Yeah, it's a difficult one. Yeah, they've won their last 2 games without conceding a goal, haven't they? And one of them was against Bristol Rovers, which a lot of teams have beaten this year. But more impressively, they won 3-0 at Gillingham last week. So really good result for them. And could it be the wrong time playing them? But Crawley are looking dogged at the moment. They're really fighting for everything. And I think they can go there and get something. Can they get 3 points? It's going to be a tough ask, especially with some of those injuries that they've got. If Flint is still out, who's arguably been their best player this season. We've still got Max Anderson out, who was a big loss in that midfield. But the likes of Justin Ferrazai have come to the fore a little bit in the last couple of games. But it's all down to those 3 up top clicking and getting a goal, because you do feel the floodgates might open a little bit if one of those gets a goal. I mean, but Darcy's got 3 or 4 assists since he's come in. So although he's not scoring, he's creating. He's been a bit quiet in a couple of games, like Lindsay said. But yeah, I think they can go there and get something. But like you say, it could have come at the wrong time. But Oldham have been quite inconsistent. Before that, they went 3 or 4 games without a win, and then before that, they went 4 games without losing. And so who knows? They could hopefully they're inconsistent, and Crawley can be consistent in their keeping it tight at the back and then hopefully getting a bit of luck up top.
Yeah, fingers crossed. Best of luck to Crawley this week. And as ever, we will finish with score predictions, starting with Brighton against Forest in the Premier League on Sunday. Derren, what do you reckon?
Ooh, it's going to be tight, I think. A tight one at the Amex. I'm going to go 2-1 for Brighton, I think. I think they should just get over the line. Had a good performance against Forest at the City Ground, and yeah, I think just about.
Mark Dunford, what do you reckon?
I think their inconsistency is going to continue, and I think it will be a really disappointing draw. And I kind of agree with you, Matt, that they're going to maybe do something against Arsenal, but they will disappoint against Nottingham Forest. So I'm going to go for a 0-0 or 1-1. It will be a tight draw.
Interesting stuff. And then Brighton Arsenal Wednesday, Derren. I think I've said that more out of hope than anything, that Brighton are going to take points off Arsenal. I imagine the reality might be a little bit different. What do you reckon?
I just can't see past Arsenal. Their squad is just so strong at the moment, no matter who they put out. Right, I'm going to go 2-0 Arsenal, I think, for that one. Yeah. Sorry, Brighton.
I think that would be the sensible choice, Mark. What do you think?
I'm going to be a bit more hopeful. I'm going to go for a 2-2 draw. I think it's going to, it'll hopefully be a good game and, get another point. But Brighton will be the better team.
Interesting stuff. And finally, Oldham are home to Crawley on Saturday. Can't call this one, Mark, myself. What do you reckon?
Yeah, I think it might be the 3rd consecutive draw for Crawley. I'm going to go for another 1-1, with Orsi breaking his duck.
Obviously, it would be a good point if results go their way. But at what point do we say, okay, it's good you're not getting beaten, but you need to start winning somewhere?
I think we have reached that point.
Have we gone beyond that point? Oh, right. Obviously.
Yeah, I don't know. If they can just keep picking up points away from home, just anything from home, getting results, then that's good. But that is the home games they've got to start picking up those 3 points. And I think, is it Swindon the week later? I think Swindon at home, which is going to be a really tough game because Swindon obviously are looking for automatic promotion. But yeah, we'll see. But I think whatever they can pick up away from home, they'll be delighted with.
And finally, Derren, how do you think Crawley are going to get on up at Oldham?
Yeah, as you mentioned, Oldham have been on a good little run at the moment. I think Oldham are going to, 1-0. Oldham are just going to nick it 1-0, I think.
Interesting stuff. Well, best of luck to both Brighton and Crawley this week, and thank you very much for joining me this week, chaps. Don't forget you can catch up with all the latest sports news covering everything we've talked about today at sussexworld.co.uk/sport. Thank you very much for listening and or watching, and hopefully, unless Scott Lindsay's dad has heard this, we will see you all next week.